All right, get ready, because today we are going to the moon.
To the moon?
Well, not literally, but we're diving deep into NASA's plans for, like, a full-on lunar infrastructure.
Oh, boy.
Not just planting a flag this time.
Okay.
We're talking habitats, rovers, the whole shebang.
Wow.
Our deep dive is all about NASA's newest announcement, and that is that they've chosen SpaceX and Blue Origin to get a whole bunch of cargo up to the moon.
Yeah.
And this is all part of the Artemis program.
Right.
And so by the end of this, you'll totally understand how NASA is setting the stage for humans to stay on the moon for good.
Yeah.
And the tech that's going to make it happen.
What's super interesting here is that NASA is thinking really long term, like decades ahead, not just a few years out.
Okay, so let's break it down.
Sure.
This NASA article we have really lays out how they're going to tackle the problem of transporting heavy cargo to the moon.
Yeah.
And one thing that really jumps out is that they picked two companies, SpaceX and Blue Origin.
Makes sense.
Why two? Why not just one?
Yeah, so they chose both SpaceX with their Starship lander and Blue Origin, and they're using a variant of their New Glenn rocket, or New Moon lander, sorry.
Okay.
And it's actually a smart move because it creates competition, which is a great way to get companies to really innovate.
Yeah, right. Of course.
And they really have to refine their designs to be the best. And maybe even more importantly, it gives NASA a backup option.
Right.
So if one lander has a problem, they've got the other one to step in.
Okay.
Which is really important when you're talking about something this complex and this big.
So it's like a safety net
Exactly.
to make sure the whole mission doesn't get delayed if one company hits a snag.
Exactly. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So what are they actually going to be carrying up there?
So each company actually has a specific job.
All right.
SpaceX is going to be delivering a pressurized rover, which is actually developed in collaboration with JAGS, which is the Japanese space agency.
Oh, okay.
And this rover is going to be delivered no earlier than 2032. So this is, a ways out.
Yeah.
And it'll be supporting Artemis 7 and the missions that come after that.
A pressurized rover? That's so cool.
Yeah.
So it means scientists don't have to be stuck in those big, bulky spacesuits all the time. Like, what kind of research can they do with that?
It's going to be a big step forward for lunar research because they can do long experiments, they can analyze samples right there in real time,
Wow.
and they can explore so much more.
Yeah.
A pressurized rover totally changes the game.
Totally.
Yeah.
And what about Blue Origin? What are they bringing?
So Blue Origin is going to be taking a lunar surface habitat up.
Wow.
And that won't be there until at least 2033.
Okay.
So even further out.
So we're talking like serious infrastructure here.
Correct.
But the article mentions that this is all happening after the first few crewed Artemis missions.
Right.
Like Artemis 3, 4, and 5 are already going to have astronauts on the moon.
That's right.
So what's the thinking there?
Well, it shows how NASA is planning for a long-term presence. They're not just making short trips there and back. They're really building something that can last.
Okay.
It's a step-by-step approach.
Yeah.
They're sending crews first to set things up.
Right.
And then they'll send the heavy stuff and habitats with these cargo landers.
So first you send the astronauts to figure things out.
Yeah.
And then you send in the movers to get everything set up for people to live there.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay, cool.
And it's worth pointing out that these cargo lander contracts are building on what they've already agreed on for the human landing systems.
So they're using the knowledge they've already paid for
Exactly.
to get the most out of their resources.
Yeah, it's a very strategic move.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But let's be real.
Sure.
Making these huge landers that can safely land heavy stuff on the moon, that's going to be super hard.
Oh, for sure. Just getting the landers down in one piece with that weak lunar gravity is a huge deal in itself. And then there's the moon dust, which is super abrasive.
Oh, yeah.
It can really mess up delicate equipment.
I can imagine.
It's like landing a feather on a windy beach covered in sandpaper.
Oh, yeah.
And we can't forget that they have to do all of this by themselves. There's no one on the moon with a joystick to guide them in.
So they have to be like super smart.
Yes.
With really advanced guidance systems to land all on their own.
Exactly.
Wow. The challenges just keep piling up.
They do.
But if we zoom out a bit, how do these cargo missions fit into the bigger picture of space exploration? Where are we going with all of this?
This is where things get really interesting because these missions are the first step to humans being on the moon permanently.
Okay.
Imagine research outposts, super advanced scientific tools.
Right.
And they could even use the moon as a test site for tech that could one day take us to Mars.
So the moon becomes a stepping stone,
Yeah.
both literally and figuratively,
Right.
to go even deeper into space. I like it. And with these cargo landers, we can finally start making that happen.
Yeah, and just think of all the scientific discoveries.
Right.
We could unlock secrets of how the solar system formed, find resources that can fuel missions further out,
Right.
maybe even find clues to the origins of life itself.
That's so exciting. But before we get too deep into that,
Yeah.
I think we need to really define what sustainable lunar presence actually means.
You're right, we keep using that phrase.
Right.
But what would it actually look like to live and work on the moon day to day? How would we handle things like resources and energy?
Yeah, lots to unpack there, and I think our listeners are ready to tackle those questions.
I'd see so too.
So stay tuned for part 2 of our deep dive,
Yeah,
where we'll really get into what it would take to have humans living on the moon for good.
sounds good.
All right, see you there.
Okay, so where were we?
We were talking about, like, what a sustainable lunar presence would actually look like.
Right, like actually living and working on the moon.
Yeah, not just, like, visiting for a few days. That's exactly. We talked about those awesome cargo landers, and all the cool stuff they're bringing, the pressurized rover, the lunar habitat.
It's pretty mind-blowing.
It is.
Yeah.
But I want to get into the details, like what are the challenges of actually building all this stuff?
Sure.
And how are engineers tackling those challenges?
So let's start with Blue Origin's lander.
Okay.
That one's actually built specifically for landing on the moon. Unlike SpaceX's Starship, which is kind of a multi-purpose spacecraft,
Oh, okay.
Blue Origin's lander uses this really interesting descent system
Okay.
with a bunch of different engines.
So instead of one big engine firing, they're using lots of smaller ones.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the advantage of that?
It's all about precision and control.
Hmm.
When you're trying to land on the moon, the gravity's way weaker than on Earth.
Right.
So you need to be able to make these tiny adjustments
Okay.
to your speed and direction.
Makes sense.
Having multiple engines gives you much finer control.
So it's kind of like having a whole bunch of tiny thrusters all working together to make sure you land smoothly.
Exactly. And remember how we talked about redundancy earlier?
Right.
If one engine fails, you've got the others to back it up.
Yeah. That's crucial when you're landing on the moon.
Right.
You don't want one little thing to ruin the whole mission.
Absolutely. And these engines are also super efficient,
Okay.
which is really important when you're trying to get the most out of your payload.
Because every bit of fuel and equipment counts when you're launching stuff into space.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got these super precise landers.
Right.
But what about the stuff they're carrying? That pressurized rover
Yeah.
that SpaceX is bringing up for JAXA.
Right.
I still can't get over that.
Pretty cool.
Scientists being able to move around on the moon without being stuck in spacesuits?
It's going to be a game changer for lunar exploration. They can do longer experiments, analyze samples right there on the spot.
Right.
It just opens up so many possibilities.
It's like the difference between scuba diving and snorkeling.
I like that analogy.
Suddenly you can stay underwater.
Right.
Or on the moon in this case.
Yeah.
For way longer and actually get stuff done.
Exactly. And they're going to have some seriously high-tech equipment on board.
Like what?
Robotic arms for grabbing samples, drills for digging into the surface,
Cool.
sensors for figuring out what rocks and soil are made of.
It's like a mobile laboratory.
Pretty much.
This is bringing back all my childhood dreams of being an astronaut.
I think we all have that sense of wonder when it comes to space.
Yeah.
And that's what makes these cargo missions so exciting.
Mm.
It's not just about sending stuff up there. It's about pushing the boundaries of what we know,
Right.
about understanding the universe better.
It's like we're sending a little piece of our curiosity to the moon
Yeah.
to explore and uncover all those secrets that have been hidden for billions of years.
And the possibilities are endless. We could learn so much about the early solar system,
Yeah.
find evidence of ancient volcanoes,
Wow.
maybe even discover resources that could be used for future missions.
It's like opening a time capsule. But instead of old photos and letters, we're finding clues to the origins of planets.
Right.
Maybe even life itself.
That's pretty amazing.
It is. And speaking of future missions, we can't forget about that lunar habitat
Right.
that Blue Origin is sending up.
That's a key part of having people live on the moon permanently.
Okay, so let's talk about that.
Sure.
What's it going to be like? Are we talking inflatable modules, underground bunkers? Is it going to be like something out of a sci-fi movie?
We don't know all the details yet.
Okay.
But if we look at how space habitats are being designed now, we can get some ideas. It'll probably be modular,
Modular.
meaning it can be expanded and adapted as the lunar base grows.
So like a lunar Lego set.
Kind of, yeah.
You start with a basic structure and then add more pieces as you need them.
Exactly, like living quarters, labs, greenhouses, maybe even a gym or something.
Oh, wow.
And it'll need to be totally self-sufficient.
Right, because you can't just run to the store for supplies when you're on the moon.
Exactly. So they need to figure out life support, power generation, waste management.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
So how are they going to make it self-sufficient?
It's going to take a lot of advanced technology.
Mm-hmm.
They'll probably use solar panels for power, water recycling systems.
Okay.
And maybe even 3D printing to make tools and spare parts right there on the moon.
Wow, a 3D printer on the moon.
The less they have to ship from Earth, the better.
So this habitat is more than just a place to live. It's like a tiny, self-contained world.
Exactly.
Designed to support life in this totally alien environment.
It's a stepping stone to a permanent lunar settlement.
It's amazing to think about all the work and planning that's going into this.
It really is.
By NASA and these private companies.
It's incredible what humans can do when we put our minds to it.
It really is. Okay, so we've really gotten into the weeds talking about lunar landers, habitats, pressurized rovers, all that cool tech that will help humans live on the moon for good.
It's amazing how far we've come.
It is, but now I'm kind of curious about the bigger picture.
Okay.
Why are we doing all of this? What's the big reason behind all this lunar ambition?
Yeah.
Are we just trying to show off, or is there, like, a deeper reason?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's one that people have been debating for a long time. There's no easy answer, but I think there are a few key reasons that really stick out.
Okay, lay it on me.
Well, first off, there's the scientific motivation.
Okay.
The moon is like this giant time capsule. It holds billions of years of our solar system's history.
Wow.
Its surface has been mostly untouched for ages.
Right.
And it holds clues to how planets formed, how often things crashed into our solar system, maybe even hints about how life itself began.
So by studying the moon, we can learn not just about the moon itself, but about the history of Earth and the whole solar system.
Exactly. Think about it. The moon's geology, what it's made of, the craters from all those ancient impacts.
Yeah.
It all tells a story. And by understanding that story, we can better understand how our own planet evolved.
Right.
And the forces that have shaped our little corner of the universe.
That's incredible.
It is.
So scientific discovery is a big motivator.
Yeah.
What else is driving this lunar push?
Another big reason is the potential for using the moon's resources.
Okay.
The moon is full of stuff that could be super valuable for space exploration in the future.
Like what?
Well, for example, it's got helium-3.
Helium-3.
It's a rare isotope that scientists think could be used as fuel for fusion reactors.
Wait, hold on. Fusion reactors?
Yeah.
Are we talking about powering lunar bases with the same thing that powers the stars?
Pretty much.
That's like straight out of a sci-fi movie.
I know, right?
Wow.
Fusion power is still in its early stages of development.
Right.
But it has the potential to be this clean, safe, and almost unlimited source of energy.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
And if we can get helium-3 from the moon, it could be a key part of making fusion a reality.
Okay.
Not just for lunar bases, but for Earth, too.
So the moon could be like this giant space gas station.
Yeah.
Fueling our future in space.
Exactly.
That's amazing. What other resources are up there?
There's also water ice.
Oh, okay.
Those craters at the poles that are always in shadow. We can break that down into hydrogen and oxygen, which are essential for rocket fuel and life support systems.
So we wouldn't have to ship all our fuel and oxygen from Earth.
Right.
We could just make it right there on the moon.
Exactly.
That would make space exploration way cheaper and more sustainable in the long run.
Absolutely. It's all about not needing Earth as much.
Right.
And setting up a self-sufficient system in space.
Okay, cool.
And we also had to think about the economic benefits as we create new technologies for lunar exploration and resource extraction.
Yeah.
It's going to lead to new industries and economic growth back here on Earth.
So it's not just science and exploration.
Right.
It's about pushing the boundaries of innovation and creating new opportunities.
Exactly. Historically, space exploration has always led to big advances in technology.
Right.
Things like GPS, satellite communication, advanced materials, even medical technologies. All of those came from the space program.
That's true.
Putting money into lunar exploration is investing in the future, both in space and here on Earth.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
But beyond all the science, economic stuff, and technology, I think there's something more basic going on here, and that's the human desire to explore.
Oh, absolutely.
It's in our nature to push boundaries, to find new horizons, to explore what we don't know.
It's that curiosity,
Yeah.
that drive to explore
Right.
that really sets us apart as a species.
And the moon, our closest neighbor in space, it's
Yeah.
always been so fascinating to us. It's like a giant silver question mark hanging in the sky.
I like that.
We've looked up at it for centuries, wondering what its secrets are. And now, with the Artemis program, we're finally close to uncovering those secrets
It's exciting.
and living on the moon for good.
It's a testament to how clever and determined humans are,
It is.
and that we can accomplish anything we set our minds to.
Yeah.
It's a story that's still being written, and these cargo missions are a crucial part of that story.
It really is an amazing time to be following space exploration.
It is.
So, to wrap it all up, our lunar goals are fueled by a mix of scientific curiosity,
Right.
the desire to find new resources and technologies,
Yes.
the potential for economic growth,
Yeah.
and maybe most importantly, that human need to explore.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And these cargo missions,
Oh,
they're
yeah.
bringing the building blocks for a permanent human presence on the moon,
Yeah.
which will help us achieve all of those goals.
It's pretty mind-blowing to think about what's possible.
It really is.
Who knows what amazing discoveries await us,
Yeah.
what new technologies we'll create, and what new chapters will add to the story of human exploration.
It's going to be an incredible journey.
It is.
Well, that's the end of our deep dive into lunar cargo landers.
It was a good one.
It was. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
And keep looking up. Who knows what amazing things we'll find next.